Hello everyone, I'm Dead Knight and this is In It to Win It. Today we're going to talk about the Year of the Gryphon Season 85, and what is clearly the most popular deck is No Minion Spell Mage. So, many of you have played against this deck already and have found it supremely frustrating, and some of you have been playing with it and snickering, but this is a very interesting deck that is worth the discussion. So, what is making No Minion Mage tick? Well, the two highest win rate cards that people are playing are going to be Deck of Lunacy and Incanter's Flow. So these are not new cards. Deck of Lunacy trades out all of the spells in your deck for new ones that cost 3 more, but you get to play them for the same cost as the original. So for example, if you had a Flame Strike, it'll turn it into a 7 mana cost Nagarin Slam or Survival of the Fittest, or etc. So that's how this card works. And what ends up happening is you can play as many spells as you can. You're going to be cycling through your deck with card draw. You're going to be clearing the board with your damage spells, and then you're going to either be pummeling your opponent with burn to the face or just oppressive, cheap, very good spells. And that has worked really well. And the thing that frustrates a lot of players about this is the randomness. Deck of Lunacy is going to give you random cards, and somehow an entire deck full of random cards is still just beating everybody else. And it's hard to figure out how to build your deck around this because it's random. So you don't know what your opponent is going to be playing. All you know is that they will be playing spells. So you see a lot of people trying to win with far watch posts to try to slow this deck down and get on the board. You see decks that are trying to flood the board with high health minions, which worked really well for me to beat this deck. And then you see people just try to get under it with very fast aggro decks and beat it before it can really get its footing. But what is giving this deck its tools to win? So those first two very high win rate cards, those are both in the 90+% win rate if you get these cards in your opening hand, so huge advantage for pulling these. Also, the main cards you're seeing running in this deck are Refreshing Spring Water, which is for 4 mana, draws you 2 cards, and you get 2 mana crystals back for every spell that you draw. So that's just a guaranteed 2 cards for 0 mana in this deck. So that's huge. And then there are 2 cards specifically that we've seen before that have synergies if you have no minions in your deck. That is Font of Power, which for 1 mana gives 3 random mage minions to your hand, and then Apexis Blast, which for 5 mana deals 5 damage and puts a 5-cost minion on the board. This is crazy good, especially right now as the 5-cost minion pool is very strong. So almost every time you're getting a good minion. There's only maybe 2 or 3 really low rolls here, and there's a couple extremely high rolls with this. So Apexis Blast is a massive monster performer in this deck, and it is one of the keys to pulling off some victories. The other thing we're seeing is some very strong 7-cost spells, with the new and improved Flame Strike now dealing 5 damage to your opponent's board, but most importantly, Mask of Cthulhu, which for 7 mana deals 10 damage divided randomly among your opponent's board. So these cards are good for 2 reasons. Firstly, because they either take complete control of the board or deal tons of damage to your opponent's face, but secondly, with Deck of Lunacy, transform into phenomenal 10-cost spells, and the pool for 10-cost spells is also very small. So you have a very high percentage chance of getting a early game Nagarin Slam, which puts 4 3/5s on the board that attack random enemies as soon as they come out. So this is obviously can sometimes just end the game, either by dealing 12 to your opponent's face on an empty board, or killing everything they have, leaving minions on the board, and dealing damage to their face. Monster card here. So this deck is just seeing tons of success right now with the speed that it can take control of the board and put damage to your opponent's face. Some things to remember with this deck is that you are going to want to run Combustion ×2, and the reason for this is because it is the best card that you have to deal with far watch posts. Far watch posts will snag your game plan in a pretty important way, slowing down all of your spells, and there isn't a really good way to get rid of it at the beginning of the game except for Combustion. So that is the reason why people are running that. And then you also need to not neglect your early game spells. So when you're looking at the way that these games are playing out and how important it is to get these high cost spells for Deck of Lunacy, but you're not always going to draw Deck of Lunacy, and your opponent is always going to be putting threats out in the beginning game. So don't cut Brain Freeze, don't cut these early game cards to make room for late game monsters. You've got to have that early game board control to make sure you have time and space to operate, to pull that Apexis Blast, to cast Deck of Lunacy, draw a bunch of cards, and then just unload on your opponent's face. But this deck has been very promising, and I had one run where I played against 7 spell mages in a row. You know, the amount of representation this deck has is crazy, and I think the win rate and the quality of the deck is bearing that out. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some piece of this deck get nerfed, just because it's really frustrating to play against and really highly represented. But until it gets nerfed, you should have fun with it. You've seen the list that I have posted right here. There's a linkable one in the description. So enjoy it. I hope you have fun with it. Let me know if it works for you. So what are you seeing mages running, and what is your frustration with Mage, or what is your pleasure about Mage? Tell me about the decks you're seeing. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, leave a respectful comment below, and tune in next time.